Oh, finally I can go live. Like yesterday, was unable to go live. Hello. I don't know if my voice is coming out. No, but let me just go live. Yeah, at the same time, share my entire screen. Oh, by the way, I just found a very cool website where you can go live. So I went live there also, and highly less likely, less chance that people would join your group or your created room. So it just feels like good. Like, gives you the same experience. I don't know, just but the chances that one might get in into your room and see what you're doing. So maybe that is the balance I want. I want people. I want the risk of people seeing me. At the same time, I don't want people to be there. Like I want them to come and see and just leave. And that's what they're doing here. But anyway, so I don't think there's any point going live right now. But I have not studied shit. So let me try studying. So let me set a timer. So I'll give a 10 minutes timer for going to the orders. Here's the mistake. N3 and N2 will be replaced with each other because the growth is shown higher of N2 as compared to N3. So yeah, it's not correct. So explain the orders of growth. Where was I? Yeah, clock. Just set a timer of timer of let's say what is this? 10 minutes. Yes. Okay. So explain the order of growth. Before I would look into the answer, I always prefer trying to get to the answer on my own. And surprisingly, most of the time, I end up saying the correct answer or answer close to the correct answer. Or sometimes I genuinely get surprised. I'm just ready to actually get to like see the answer rather than just start up reading like a newspaper shit. So explain the orders of growth. This is just this small question here. So orders of growth. It's basically how n grows, how the time and space complexity behaves with the growing value of n for a certain algorithm. So if the order of growth is nothing but O of n. So O of O of n, right? F of n is equals to O of n, like function. Your function will determine certain O of something. Or maybe I don't know what I'm saying, but maybe close to that. Yeah. So it's more like so best time complexity if O of one, if it is like log n, it is like bad time is like okay, like still good kind of complexity, and it becomes I guess n log n. That's like still like fine kind of time complexity. When it becomes O of n, it's like linear time complexity, and it's like still good. It's like it's okayish, and it becomes n log n. That is not okayish, kind of bad. N square is worse time complexity, and cube is worse time complexity, I guess. And that's how things are. That's all I know about order of growth. So before I just see the right answer, let me take some more time processing whatever. Let my brain process whatever I said. What is this? Explain the orders of growth. What's here from GROWTH? Is correct. GROWTH. Say that. Explain the orders of GROWTH. Okay. So before seeing this, let's just you know, this is insightful. I would like to read this because I'm interested in. Do you say a lot interested in like it's my passion? Okay, so let me see what is written here. What is this weird sounds of snakes outside the room? 6 minutes. The time complexity of an algorithm is generally some function of instance of a characteristics. What? Anyway, this function is very useful in determining how the time requirements vary in instance of characteristic change. Let f of n be the complexity of a function with the input size n. And the value of f of n, I suppose, or what is this, increases when n of value increases and therefore the complexity of the function directly proportional to the level. The order of growth for this is O of 1 log n log n. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, n log n square n cube 2 to the power n and n factorial. Know how the various to know it is advised to study the following table. What the fuck? n log n. Wait a second. N log n square. I mean, is there a mistake? Square n cube to the power n. So what is n1 log n is also 1. 0. And log n is 0. And square is 2 becomes 1. Yeah, it's like understandable, man. I can understand it for the first time in my life. Okay. For 4, it becomes 2, 8, 16, 64, 16. This is actually interesting. I need a calculator. For like, why have I. Who the fuck has. Like, till here it is fine, bro. Till here it is fine. I'll not go there, bro. My maths don't. I don't know do maths. Okay. It is a evolved form of above table. The function to the n grows very rapidly with n. In fact, if 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 an algorithm needs to do n steps for execution, then the when n is equal to 32, the number of steps needed is approximately 4.2 to the 9 order of growth for some functions. So now what I would like to say on this. So let me just end it. Okay. So what do I understand from order of growth is like how the graph grows, how the time complexity grows, how the time complexity behaves or grows exponentially, how the time complexity grows with the growing value of n. For example, um, there is an order of growth that is O of 1 is at top, then O of log n, then O of n, then O of n log n, and then O of n square, then O of n cube, then O of 2 to the power n, then O of factorial n. Okay, and it's like, so when n actually becomes 32 and the order of growth is 2 to the power n, then 2 to the power 32 becomes 4.9 times 10 to the power 10 to the power 9, which is such a great, a huge value. Okay, स्लीपर बेल भी नहीं भाई, कोई बिल्ड ही नहीं है. मैं like महसूस, maybe not in this lifetime, but anyway, so proud of whatever I have. So This is what I understand by all of that. So there's a graph, flat, like this, like this, like this. We can draw that. And for more context, let me just graph of n, graph of order of growth, graph growth. So this is that graph. Let's take the easier one. As I told you, it is as simple. Yeah. So order of growth is quite easy to explain. Now, irrespective of the fact that it's easy to explain and everything, I would still like to read through the ChatGPT's document, chat whatever is chat the chat says ChatGPT provided us. So okay, so this is the order of growth. Okay, sure. The order of growth, also called as growth rate or asymptotic complexity. Okay, this is something new. Asymptotic complexity. Order of growth is also known as growth rates or also known as asymptotic complexity. It describes how the performance of an algorithm changes as size of the input increases. It helps us understand the efficiency of algorithm terms of it helps us understand efficiency of an algorithm in terms of okay, I don't have time. Terms of time and space. We usually express the order using O of f of n or f of n represent how the runtime or space grows with the input n. With the f of n is equals to 1. Solution algorithm takes the same amount of regardless of the input or size, assuming the array elements of the index. So indexing of an array element that takes O of 1 time. Logarithmic time. Then okay. So all this nonsense. Right now I don't want to read factorial time. I don't want to read. I just wanted to see the bubble sort. It takes quadratic and squares का time complexity है. Merge sort है log n. Naive matrix multiplication is n cube. Recursive Fibonacci is n square to n. N factorial is permutations generation. Why? Yeah, no, interesting. Extremely inefficient, faster, grows faster than exponential. Generally, all permutations of a list. Okay, that's gonna be painful. Anyway, so I don't care. So, few things I would like to write down in my copy. Order of growth. So, order of growth, I know definition, and there's just a small formula. F of n decides how a function behaves with growing n. So, f of n could be anything belongs to R real numbers. It could be 1, 2, n log n log n square, उसके बाद n cube to the power n and factorial, I guess, right at the end. So these are the order of growth. So it's so how do we find the order of growth? We find O of f of n, correct? So yeah, this is how I find the time. The time complexity is found in the form of big O notation. We try to find it using the big O notation. So it's not that hard, right? But anyway, let me just read it for the final time. Whatever things there. Order of growth is this. एंड एफ ऑफ एन क्या है ठीक से लिखा नहीं है। और तीसरा यहाँ पे ग्राफ ग्राफ को एक्स एंड वाई and factorial. Okay, it looks nice to me. Infinite time भी लग सकता है almost infinite time ऐसे होना था and उसके बाद आता है to the end. Okay, and if n is equals to 32 ना, then O of f of n equals f of n. f of n क्या निकल रहा है हम लोग के केस में to the power n, and it becomes O of to the power 32. That is almost like O to the power 4.2. नहीं इसको सॉल्व करके ना 4.2 so this was one of the hack, and at the same time it can write like this n 1 है ना log n क्या value होता है 0 ऐसे n log n is 0 n q square 1 ऐसे देखो. So I have reached there so far. Explain the asymptotic notation. Asymptotic growth भी कहते हैं इसको order of growth को. That's one of the names. So you're gonna read the sixth and the seventh, but for now we'll take a break of like 5 minutes. हाँ नहीं मारेंगे चंक चंक में पढ़ेंगे धीरे धीरे तोड़ तोड़ के भाई कोई दिक्कत नहीं है आराम से पढ़ेंगे. So let me just mute. Okay, shut down the camera for a second. No way, I can't do that. Okay. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. कहाँ गया Siri? Hey Siri. Set a timer. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. Set a timer of 5 minutes. Hey Siri, set a timer of 7 minutes.
is we need energy in all forms, renewable, non-renewable, whatever. It needs to be there, and it needs to be quickly. People are planning 10 gigawatt data centers. Just to do the translation, an average nuclear power plant in the United States is 1 gigawatt. How many nuclear power plants can we make in 1 year where we're planning this 10 gigawatt data center? Gives you a sense of how big this crisis is. Many people think that the demand of energy that our industry takes will go from 3% to 99% total generation. One of the estimates that I think is most likely is that data centers will require an additional 29 gigawatts of power by 2027 and 67 more gigawatts by 2030. Gives you a sense of the scale that we're talking. These things are industrial at the scale. So I'm just some looks, facts, and advice. Basically, like I feel like I'm not confident with doing that at all. And I feel like that was like not that attractive.
I mean, you first hypothesis was correct. You are not that attractive with women. I can see the beard. Take it out. Let's see.
I'm basically sick, so I don't cut my hair.
You're a what?
I'm a sick.
You're a religion. Okay, got it. All right. So do you have to have this and like, bro? You look like Aladdin. You're like the dude that come out there to the lantern. Do you need this and this?
No, I've been trying to figure out ways that I can groom it and make it better, like with gel and oil.
Does it have to be that long?
No, it does not. But in my religion, we just don't trim our hair. Like we don't trim our beards.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, let me see the hair. What religion are you in that you can't cut your hair?
Basically, I'm a Sikh.
Okay, Sikh. I don't know what that is, but okay.
Yeah, it's basically like a religion, where we believe in one God. We don't cut our hair.
Interesting. All right, man. I support whatever religion you believe in. I just want you to know that that's gonna affect your appearance drastically because you look kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Just as long as you're aware.
So looks, facts, and advice. Basically, what?
This is Mr. Kunal and this is Mr. Rahul. Both of them spend 40,000
आप लोगों को यकीन नहीं आएगा ये एग्जैक्टली एक इंच का सोना है जूते पर कोई सोना मैं हर एक दिखाऊंगी मैं सोना गाइस ये मेरी सोना है सारी दुनिया ना ये व्हाइट चॉकलेट की बारे में पागल हो गई है मैंने कहा यार इतना महंगा है मैं अजीब इतना पैसा खर्च करता हूँ इसने भी
रोज सुबह सुबह उठकर आपको एक पैरासिटामोल और एक एंटीबायोटिक जरूर खानी चाहिए उसके बाद शाम को जब आप घर आ जाते हो तो फिर आपको पैरों पे और बैक पे बैंडेज कर देना चाहिए और जंदुबाम और मुंह पहले लगा लेनी चाहिए दिस इज हाउ यू विल रिमेन हेल्दी फॉर लाइफ ऑफ कोर्स और इसीलिए तो हम स्किन पे एक्टिव्स लगाते हैं क्योंकि जैसे हम रोज दवाई हमें खानी चाहिए वैसे ही हम हमारे स्किन पे ऑलरेडी रोज दवाई लगा रहे हैं इन ऑफ एक्टिव्स जहाँ पे हमारी मेडिसिन जैसे पैरासिटामोल एंटीबायोटिक्स इनमें होता है एक्टिव फार्मास्यूटिकल इंग्रेडिएंट्स वैसे ही हमारे जो एक्टिव्स हैं विटामिन सी रेटिनॉल नाइसिनामाइड हाइलुरोनिक एसिड ये सब भी एक्टिव इंग्रेडिएंट्स हैं तो रोज सुबह आप दवाई खाना शुरू कर दो ताकि आपकी हेल्थ ठीक रहे जैसे कि आप अपनी स्किन पे एक्टिव इंग्रेडिएंट्स लगा रहे हैं ताकि आपकी स्किन ठीक रहे पर आप ऐसा नहीं कर रहे राइट आप रोज सुबह मेडिसिन नहीं खा रहे बिकॉज यू नो कि मेडिसिन सिर्फ तब खानी है जब बहुत ज्यादा
My name is Scott, and I have 2 shots of vodka. I'm struggling this morning, and I need you to pray for me because I got to drink these shots to really just stay alive because they say I'll have a seizure. Yesterday, I went into the ER because I had a panic attack for the first time in my life. I wish I had attacks, but I drink every night. Oh shit! Give me a second. Let me do one shot real quick and I'll tell you what started. Oh, I'm gonna fuck it there. 3 shots. And I'll stop taking it. I'm just trying to get 3 shots. And I'll stop taking it. I promise you that I went in. And they diagnosed me with alcohol cirrhosis. I woke up and my eyes were yellow. You look in the mirror every day to see if your eyes are yellow or red. Tomorrow they're going to be yellow and you're going to shit your pants and you're going to faint like I did yesterday. And I had to be taken to the ER.
So what happens when one of the world's top neuroscientists takes the strongest psychedelic known to humanity, and after decades of studying how consciousness comes from only the brain, this is how one 10-minute psychedelic trip changed everything. World-renowned scientist Dr. Christoph Kohl is known for developing models of consciousness and how that integrates with reality. And so when he inhaled 5-MeO-DMT, the strongest known psychedelic on the planet, that's when his entire worldview on consciousness shattered. He says during the trip that there was no concept of space, time, memory, or even himself, and that there was just unbearable light full of terror and ecstasy, where he says he became the universe. And this connects back to his concept called the integrated information theory, basically saying how consciousness does not only come from the brain, but comes from how connected we are. So the example is, imagine if you're in a group chat where everyone is talking, it's very chaotic, and no one is listening. So that's what we call low connection. So what happens? Connected we are. So the example is, imagine if you're in a group chat where everyone is talking, it's very chaotic, and no one is listening. So that's what we call low connection versus high connection, which is when everyone is deeply listening and responding to each other. So the more your brain is connected to a system, the more conscious it is. So in the integrated information theory, if two systems, you and the universe, become more connected, you just don't stay separate. You merge and become one consciousness. Key takeaway here is Dr. Christoph says that consciousness is reality experiencing itself. So what happens when one of the world's top neuroscientists takes the strongest psychedelic known to humanity, and after decades of studying how consciousness comes from only the brain, this is how one 10-minute psychedelic trip changed everything. World-renowned scientist Dr. Christoph Koch is no...
Christoph Koch.
Bright light, no self, no crystal, no memories, no thought, no future, no past, no time, no space. It was just terror and ecstasy.
What if you were one of the world's most famous neuroscientists, having studied consciousness theoretically all of your life? Then you have this profound, transcendent experience.
It felt like a near-death experience.
In only
3
seconds.
breaths, my field of view stopped breaking up into hexagonals, black, and I couldn't take the first breath anymore because I was going to a black hole.
Out of scientific curiosity, Christoph Koch took one of the most potent psychedelics on our planet, 5-MeO-DMT.
5 claims to be a student of consciousness. Here we have a technique that can rapidly and dramatically and sometimes transformatively change your experience of the world. Well, that's for sure what I experienced it. I'm the universe. Is it true that I broke through some dissociative boundary and now suddenly enable this brain to access the universal mind?
I sat down with Christoph Koch to talk about psychedelic experiences and integrated information theory, IIT. But we first had to get down to the basics of consciousness.
There's no Turing test for consciousness. The problem of consciousness is not just what most people think, oh, you have to explain how anything can be conscious. That is a problem. But then you also have to explain in each case why is the particular conscious experience the way it is.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Whether I'm on mushroom or handling, these are different experiences. You have to explain how I can have different experiences.
Yeah. We tend to believe that if a system behaves conscious, it might be conscious. Now, IIT doesn't want to take consciousness at face value.
It's not about behavior. Ultimately, you have to look at the hardware level. You have to look at the level where the rubber meets the road. You actually have to look at one transistor acting on other transistors.
According to IIT, consciousness has to do with the interconnectedness of the hardware of a system, its integrated information. It measures this as phi. Now, what makes the theory widely applicable is that any system, not only brains, has a phi.
Consciousness may be much more widespread than we think. A single cell bacteria may already feel something.
Now, where IIT to me becomes really fascinating is that it has no theoretical objections to the idea of a higher form of mind that extends beyond our brains. And a larger consciousness, as you said earlier, will wipe out sort of, if we, the two of us, connect, sort of, and it becomes this new maximum integrated, it will wipe out our conscious experience.
Correct. Suddenly, the complexity, this phi measure of our integrated brain, will exceed that of my brain by itself and of your brain by itself. At that point, what will happen? Hans, gone. Christoph, gone. Instead, there will be this new Ubermind, okay, this new amalgamation of Hans and Christoph. And they will see our four eyes, and then have two mouths, etc.
Christoph Koch is a brilliant, open-minded scientist. But what made this conversation really stand out for me is that he also knows the moment where art sometimes better describes the depth of human consciousness than science. And as a German, he knows his classics.
To quote from the second act of Tristan und Isolde, selbst dann bin ich die Welt. That's exactly. Then I am the title of my next book. Then I am the world. Because then I experience the world.
Oh, it's so exciting, but I can't afford it. So hey Siri, 5 minutes timer. Hey Siri, 5 minutes timer. Okay, so let's get back. Okay, so I'm back. So right now I have to finish it quickly, otherwise finish it quickly. I don't know. Okay, so where was I? Where was I actually? Uh, all this is happening because of high sugar consumption. Body gains of weird ass fats, wrong places, still skinny. This is crazy because of the sugar. This sugar is there in this drink, so yeah, sucralose. This contains sucralose. What the fuck is sucralose? Sucralose. ChatGPT. What is sucralose? Okay, so it contains sucralose. So sometimes studies suggest that high temperature. So there are no debate that about the impact on health. Insulin response to generally considered safe by health authorities. So 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 is it processed sugar, and can it cause effect to my aging and organ health? Sucrose starts as sugar but chemically modified. See, we keep not a natural sugar. Your body does not recognize metabolize it like sugar, so it does not provide calorie or energy. Yeah, there is no direct evidence sucrose accelerating aging. That said, some researchers speculate inflammation and health over time and might influence aging. Okay, of course, inflammation over time. Generally, directly, but sometimes some animal studies that have shown possible effects on kidney function, liver enzymes, and bacteria imbalance. Uh, that's weird. I don't know what the heck should I even eat. Okay, so explain the asymptotic notation with examples and write a general plan for recursive and non-recursive empirical analysis of algorithms. So this is gonna be a very long question. And okay, so before we fuck it up, let me just what is that? Why did it go block? For real. Don't let me search. Don't let me search. I don't care. Yeah, I'm doing the search. God, my head's aching like crazy. So let me paste it here. Few more questions and we are done for the day. Okay. So explain. Let me get rid of this one. So it goes like, okay, it goes like explain asymptotic notations with examples with general plan. Asymptotic notation. I have no clue what it is. Asymptotic notation or order of growth notation. Okay, big. Okay, got it. So how to read it? Asymptotic notation are notation mathematical tools. These are mathematical tools that helps us analyze the performance of an. Okay. There are different types of asymptotic notation. Big O of n, big O, omega, theta. Three. There are three different types. Big O notation, omega notation, and theta notation, right? Omega theta. Let me write this down. Big O notations. Right. Asymptotic. O, big O of n. Right. That's how it. Oh. Then we have omega. How do I write omega? Omega of n. Then we have theta. Yes, theta of n. Like that we write theta, or oh no, theta is not 5. Theta of n. Okay. Okay. Big O notation gives the upper bound of gives an upper bound of the function fn. This upper bound of indicates that the function will be the worst case that does not consume more than computing time. So omega big O is worst time complexity. Theta is average time complexity. Omega is the lower bound complexity price. So theta is average. That is both lower and upper bounds of an algorithm. And omega lower bound. Now let's look at examples. So big O notation. Okay, here's an okay here. Oh God! Drink some water. Okay, so big O notation gives an upper bound function. The upper bound function, okay. एग्जाम्पल एक ही केस लेते हैं O of n का मतलब big O. Okay. For example, g of x is equal to here g of x is equal to x. ठीक है g of x कर दें n कर दें g of n is equal to n. The modulus f of n c times g of n such that it's equal to n naught. So for example fn plus 2 greater than c times okay n. Now what's How? Ha, yeah, true, true. It was easy. So it starts with here g of n is equals to n. Now we'll write f of n is, is smaller than c of g of n. Right, so c of g of n is what? N. F of n, let's say 5x, 5x plus 2. And the function will have to, and at the same time, I have to remember n naught. So that n. ठीक है? And setting c is equals to, setting c is equals to 7 and not equal to 1, we have 5x plus 7. The above inequality can be solved. Therefore, f of x is equals to O of L. ओमेगा कैसे खोल देते हैं? गिवन है f of x equals to 10x square plus 4x plus 3. Prove f of x equals to omega of n. ठीक है? इस केस में क्या होगा? लिखेंगे f of n ही कर देते हैं, f of n minus n. f of n इधर इस साइड में बड़ा हो जाएगा ओमेगा में क्या होता है? ऐसे घूम जाता है ओमेगा में. यहाँ होगा क्या? यहाँ क्या होगा? c of तो यहाँ होगा 10 square plus 4 plus 3 greater than equal to, ये कितना दिया है? दिया नहीं है. इसका वैल्यू n ही मानना पड़ेगा. ठीक है. Let's see क्या होगा. नहीं कैसे करेंगे इसको? Let c is equals to 1 and not is equals to 1 as well. 10n square plus 4n plus 3 plus the 2 times n. Oh, f of x is equal to 1 of x of theta. अच्छा, इसमें इसमें दोनों चीजें करना पड़ता है। ओ भाई ना C1 C2 आ गया भाई। C1 GN ठीक है। f of n times C2 not C1 GN is n f of n is power n formula n plus 2 C2 g of n is less than. So we have finding this formula. Setting C is equals to setting C1 equals to something, C2 is equals to something, and not is equals to 2 and not constant. C1 equal to 3 and C2 is equals to 1. It is equals to 4. We have 3 and then 3 and plus 2 and then 4.
इसी प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व कर। को पता है ना कि इस्लाम में मायूसी कुफ्र है, यानी कि अगर हालात कितने ही बुरे क्यों ना हो जाए, आप कितने ही गुनाहगार क्यों ना हो जाए, अगर आप किसी भी स्टेज पर ये नहीं सोच सकते 10 पत्थर तोड़ेंगे, एक पत्थर बच्चा हिरन का बच्चा हिरन गई नानी को पकड़ो, उसकी नानी गई जेल में, हम कटी रेल में खाए बिस्किट बिस्किट बड़े अच्छे, अल्लाह मियां सच्चे, सच्चे सच्चे जाएंगे, भाई की दुल्हन लाएंगे, भाई की दुल्हन काली, सौ नखरों वाली, एक नखर टूट गया तो भाई ये क्या है, और ये चुनिया मैंने बचपन में पहली बात है, ये हिरन की नानी जेल में, मुझे लगता है जब भैया की दुल्हन काली हो गोरी हो जैसी हो, उसको डिस्कस किया जा रहा है। बचपन में याद ये नस्लें सारी जिंदगी याद रहे। मुझे लगता है कि बच्चों को कुछ अच्छी अच्छी नस्ल की जरूरत है, जिसने ना सिर्फ खुदाशनासी का दर्ज हो बल्कि मजा भी है। Fair my parents. Okay, students. So here our topic is. Any questions? Excuse me. Yeah. I have a question. What is the impact of quantum theory on artificial intelligence? Oh my god, what should I do now? I don't know the answer. Should I just tell her that I don't know? No, I'm the teacher. I can't say that. Okay, use your ninja technique. Very good question. What do you think is the answer? I don't know. That's why I asked you. Would anybody else like to answer her? Miss, actually, that's a complicated question, you know. That's a very complicated question, right? So, this is the beauty of learning. Sometimes the best answer comes from exploring the question itself. So, this is your homework for today. Look, I can't tell you everything. I'm a teacher. It doesn't mean that I have to tell you everything. Do you really know the answer? I know the answer, but I can't just tell you right now. Tomorrow we're going to discuss it in class. Really? Okay, students. So here. उर्दू मुकाबला में खुश आमदीद। आज मैं आपसे पूछूंगी उर्दू। आप शायद से इतना भारतीय क्यों है? इरादे नहीं है, ये डर लगता है। लेकिन आजकल का दौर नहीं बदला।
जिसका भी दौड़ हो, चलन हो, जो भी हो, तो भाई मैं को चाहिए, मेरे को चाहिए सेक फ्रूट्स, मेरे को चाहिए कि मैं तो समझ में आ गया भाई वाला। I don't want to read that. I want to read the effects of quantum theory on AI intelligence. मैं जो करना general plan for the setting of recursive relation, then plan for non-recursive algorithm, set a parameter indicating the input size, identification of algorithm, then plan for numerical analysis of algorithm, understanding
झूठ. ये so okay, so eating. The first is enumerates ENUMER, and then identify transfer. So connecting. Selection for start. This is that much called selection shot. That's the open scope. First is square space. Blue fuel. So selection shot explain simply the code and steps. Just start from like zero to zero. So selection shot start from zero. Starting with the that's all done. Align and order. So each event by smallest element is unsorted. I let I find the smallest element. Actually, I've never understood the selections. Wait a second. How did it start? 3 is the minimum. Okay, so I found a new minimum. Oh, initially. It's moving forward. I and minimum. That's equal forward. Find minimum. Then the minimum shifts, but I stays same. Then I prepare. And they can't find anything. So once they can't find anything, that's what they happens with I and the new minimum and the I and the new minimum is moved forward. Now I 4 is getting 5, still the minimum 3. In this case here, I have found a new minimum. This is going forward, and again it finds a new minimum, that is J. So what did it do? Again the minimum goes forward. That's good. Now what will happen with working? It will happen with 4 and 2. Okay. So again the I becomes 5 now, and I becomes 5, and minimum also becomes 5. But do you remember? Wait a second. What was J before? Yeah. So yeah, let's see. But minimum, acha, J doesn't move at all. J stays at its place, but minimum moves forward. J was its place all the time. J told J was J was I and J was a different things. Okay. So what's n plus 2? I mean, I understood that. But if somebody explains me now what is the difference of quick.
Today we're going to learn selection sort. Let's say we're given the following array and we want it sorted in increasing order. How will we do this? During each iteration, we'll select the smallest item from the unsorted partition of our array and move it to the sorted partition. We'll keep track of the current minimum and current item with red and blue arrows.
Current minimum, current item is J. Now what is I then? Good question. What is I?
Let's get started. We always set the current minimum to the first number in the unsorted partition, in this case 2. We progress the length of the array looking for a smaller number. We find 1 at the end of the array and set it as our current minimum. We swap 1 and 2. We now have 1 item in our sorted partition. Moving on, we set 8 as our current minimum and scan the remainder of the array for a smaller number, updating the current minimum as we progress. Can we find 2 and swap it with 8? Let the smallest item.
Selection shot is not. Got it. Selection shot is okay. I need to know the algorithm for selection. Let's name it as current index and back to score. Fucking hate this. Let the minimum be I. Minimum will be I. Let the j is equals to I plus 1. And I j as minimum. And minimum is j. Oh, we're swapping the values in one line. Oh, okay, right. ये वाला तो मैंने sorted. Okay, Russian prison multiplication. As far as the prison multiplication, Joseph, Russian prison multiplication.
Hey there, it's DeMarcos, and I'm going to show you something kind of cool. It's called the Russian peasant method of multiplication. And it's real. It's a way that people in Russia are multiplying numbers. And from speaking to some parents who are actually from the area, I hear that they still sometimes teach it. Some people actually still use this. So it's kind of neat. So here's what you do. Let's say we're going to multiply 24 times 16. You set up 2 columns. The left column, we're going to take the numbers, we're going to cut them in half. The right column, we're going to just keep doubling the numbers. So 24 cut in half is 12.
Yeah.
16 doubled is 32. 12 cut in half is 6. 32 doubled is 64. 6 cut in half is 3. 64 doubled is 128. And 3 cut in half is actually 1.5. But we just throw away the remainder and we keep the 1. And 128 doubled is 256. Now, any numbers that are even on the left side, we will just cross out that entire line. So 24 is even, so we cross it out. 12 is even, so we cross that line out. 6 is even, so we cross that line out. And what we're left with is 128 and 256. We just add those numbers. 8 plus 6 is 14. Carry the 1, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 plus 1 is 3. And that's our answer. So 24 times 16 equals 384. Now, if you don't believe it, you can just do a quick little check with a calculator, or you can just multiply it. 6 times 4 is 24.
This is where compute will be ahead. Next, base case. As I said, we're going to be working with 52. Well, you're actually going to be 6,852, whatever number I said. I don't remember. And we're going to be passing through here.
How you going after this?
Here. And we want to go ahead and write an algorithm for this multiplication. So we're going to be multiplying these two numbers. The algorithm will allow us to multiply those via Russian peasant multiplication. And this is how we're going to do it. So we need our base case. As I said, we're going to be working with recursion. So what's a good base case, right? We're going to assume one of these variables is going to be moving towards the exit. Every time we pass through a recursive loop, it's going to get smaller, if you will. Eventually, it's going to get to a certain value where we're done. Now, think about multiplication. Right? If you're going to multiply two numbers and one of them keeps getting smaller, what's a good point when you realize you're going to be done? Well, if x is equal to 1, for instance, well, we automatically know that if x is equal to 1, then return water, right? Because if you have 1 multiplied by 6,852, well, your answer is going to be 6,852, whatever number I said, I don't remember. So if you're multiplying by 1, you're going to get that value back. So that's a good base case for us, because x is going to keep getting smaller, and eventually, you will get to 1, and then you have your base case to finish things off right there. That's our first thing. And now we're going to want some conditions. Now we're going to be dividing this up to odd and even. We'll start with odd, and we'll have one if statement over here for even. So if x is odd. So if we find that x is odd, return y plus, here comes a recursive call, peasant. But what parameters are we going to want to use here? Right? Well, we automatically know that we want x to get smaller. We're going to want x to get smaller. So let's go ahead and divide that by 2. So we'll actually divide that by 4. X over 2. So there. And then what should we have as our y parameter if we're going to be doing that, right? Well, obviously we don't want to divide that. We don't want to multiply that y parameter by 2. So remember, so when it is odd, we will be dividing x by 2, and then we'll be multiplying y by 2. Then we'll have our even condition. If x is even, then we'll be returning, and then we have a y over here, right? If x is even, then we'll just be returning peasant x over 2 to y. So when it's odd, we will have that y over here. So that y is going to be returned plus a recursive call. So it's eventually going to keep building up, right? It's going to keep building up 5 and something and something and something. So eventually get to your answer. And then if it's even, you're just going to do that, which will eventually set you back on the right path. And take a look at how this works. Those pick some numbers there. Pick some numbers. An example that I saw in class. So we're going to use that one just because I don't want to not creative enough to come up with that one. So we go 46 times 324. That's equal to 140. I'm just completely, let me write this out before I humiliate myself again. 14,904. So how exactly would this multiplication work? How would this whole process go through? So we are going to have on the side
Let's see if the number is even.
So
We'll put a 0 and over.
so it's present x comma y, and if x is equals to 1, then simply return y. This is the base case, and the recursion is the base case. And if yeah, yeah, if x is belongs to even number, then x divided by 2 modulus comma y times 2, yeah. And if it is odd, x divided by 2 minus the divided, and then modulus of x, okay.
And it doesn't matter.
So let me just check again one more time.
What do you want to call this? Do you want to call this? You know, what do I call this, right? You know, eventually, it's 952 and even. That's it. Well, should we have as our y parameter if we're going to be doing that, right? Well, obviously, we're going to want to divide that with.
Here's the difference. If x is odd, then return y plus
Multiply that y parameter by 2. So there we go. So when it is odd,
what is even?
it's a recursive call.
Okay.
So it's eventually going to keep building up, right? It's going to keep y plus something plus something plus something to eventually get to your answer. And then if it's even, you're just going to, so when you use that, going to do that.
So let me just try it out. Is she recent? Fuck is it? Oh, I must be lost it. Let's quickly write it. Not a good thing. So present x comma y. Okay. Using recursion. Okay, so we have if x is equals to 1, then return right x belongs to even, then return y plus present on itself of x by 2 comma 2y. And if x is odd, then simply return present x by 2 comma 2y. Just to make it as a call. Okay. Let's read the last thing. My friend is registered. What is it? Joseph. Fuck is it? Joseph.
So it's called the Josephus problem. It's based on something from history. There was a group of Jewish soldiers who were surrounded by the Roman army, and they didn't want to get captured. So they decided to come up with a system to avoid getting captured or suicide. So they sit in a circle, and the first man would kill the guy on the left of him. The next remaining living person would kill the next remaining living person with their sword. And they go around like that until there's only one person left. And then the last person would have to commit suicide, of course, without being captured. And the story, at least the story I was.
What the fuck?
So it's called the Josephus problem. And so just to be clear how it works is person number 1 kills number 2. Person number 3 kills 4. 5 kills 6. But now it's not a little harder to see it. It's just 7 kills 7. But it kills 5. 7 kills 3. So 7 kills 7 the last one. Kills 7 kills 3. Just a tiny amount of experiments start to see some patterns. So let's do 13. So as you see, it's jumping by 2 each time, but then it resets at some point. And I want to go back. So we'll see what 13 is quickly. So we didn't reset that. Likely we won't reset it the next one either. 14 will be 13. And we're starting to make predictions. It's worth noting, even though we maybe can't say exactly what like 178 would be, we're starting to see the pattern well, so we can make a prediction. So you could guess, is it really true that 14 is going to give you 13? And we can do it out, and you'll see, in fact, that's what you'll get. So we're getting some understanding. But I want to go back to this point. You asked me to reset it, go back to 1. And the answer is no. It's worth looking. This is the next thing. We're going to get the 1. So if you look for a sec, there's something very special. I thought, well, I don't know what the general answer is yet. Be a big one, something. Prove it, and they say, really understand that one thing. I don't feel the one for this. So here's the question. There's going to state a conjecture and then prove a theorem based on what we just saw. And so that's not going to be so here's the conjecture. It's a pure probability. It's
There's over 10,000 kids. When does it get this? How much is your apartment cost? And then the rest of the money, what you do with it? Oh, I know what the hell is going on. God, you save me your money. And the way that you can have these and get to the real right way, we gotta begin at this happen to us, man. A lot of us fall into this trap, and we think that we're the one solely responsible for saving our entire generation. Well, it's not really happening if you don't have enough money. So I understand what you want. Now it makes sense. How much money you spend on money? So you should spend $2,000 every 3 months, but you only make it 10 a year. It needs to be a point, but it's a sacrifice. But again, parents, I can't give you anything right now until I can make some money into you. My situation is right in help. Make it here. $10,000. 10,000 you get dollars a year. A year. Here's over maybe 10,000 because of kids. When does our pay tax? How much is your working cost?
दोस्तों देख सकते हैं आज संडे को सवेरे सवेरे उठी hey guys we're marketing imagine one day living your life and then boom the universe opens you up you see all this light and your consciousness starts expanding and although this sounds crazy this is the science behind what's called spontaneous spiritual awakenings. A fascinating study looked at over 150 people's spiritual awakening stories and no there was no use of psychedelics drugs or other substances and the universal themes of these experiences was that they felt connected to a universal source energy that was full of love, bliss, and intelligence. These people scored higher on what's called temporal brain reliability, which is a measure of the part of your brain which is more sensitive to these altered states of consciousness. And this is the part of the brain that is connected to deja vu, near-death experiences, and other mystical events. So people who score higher in temporal reliability basically are more primed to be in touch with these higher altered states of consciousness. Here's the thing, this doesn't only include regular people. Another study looked at scientists and academics that also had these spiritual awakenings. And in the study, they said that these spiritual awakenings were more common, predictable, and healing than we think. 98% of these scientists reported major improvements in their life. Key takeaway here is that these mystical experiences were not normal. Rather than being judged and misdiagnosed, these experiences are not breakdowns, rather they are breakthroughs. Imagine one day living your So what you're seeing here is not Christmas lights, there are actually thousands of fireflies in Southeast Asia, and this is one of the mysteries of nature that is teaching us about consciousness in our brain. So this is a phenomenon called synchronous bioluminescence, which basically means that these fireflies are able to flash in unison by adjusting their local rhythm based on other nearby fireflies. And similar to the resonating flashes of these fireflies, our brain neurons that fire together also fire together, which means they also produce resonance or synchrony based on local feedback loops. So when your brain flashes like a firefly, this is what's called gamma band synchronization. Many neurons that, what if I told you that telepathy, the ability to send and receive messages via the mind, is actually real, and any one of us can learn how to do this. And this is how one documentary is revolutionizing how science thinks about consciousness. In the documentary, telepathy tapes is showing how these autistic, nonverbal kids, once they will function, is shocking everyone with their high-functioning abilities. Meets Mia, who's blindfolded and is able to spell out exactly the random images that her mom sees. And then there's Akil, who's able to read his mom's thoughts in full sentences and is able to spell it out with over 90% accuracy, which is statistically impossible unless it's real. And other kids like John Paul, Houston, all say they meet up on something called the Hill, where it's kind of like a telepathic chat room for all these kids, using no technology, just their thoughts and emotions in their able to talk to each other across the country. And Harvard trained scientist Dr. Diane Powell has tested these kids using rigorous protocols. And after all these experiments, these kids continue to shock scientists and prove that telepathy might just be real. Almost every one of these kids say the same thing, that telepathy is actually a gift from God, and that we're all capable of doing this. It's just that we've forgotten. The secret to these powers is to use love. Instead of being intellectually delayed, these kids would just be more involved in us. What if I told you that science just discovered something that is not alive, but also not dead? It doesn't eat, grow, or reproduce, and yet it still shows intelligence. It's being called the third state of life, and it might just revolutionize what it means to be alive. Introducing the xenobot, which is a biological machine made out of frog cells using artificial intelligence. Sounds like something out of a mad scientist's laboratory. Let me explain. According to conventional science, something that is considered alive must grow, metabolize, and reproduce. But these xenobots break all these rules. To show this, Dr. Levin took these frog cells and instead of editing its DNA, they simply rearranged the cells like Legos. And remember, these are like stranded cells with no thinking, no plan, no genetic programming. And what happened next was fascinating. These xenobots showed remarkable intelligence where they learned how to move, heal, and collectively work together to build new versions of themselves. Kind of like a community of tiny living Lego robots. This discovery forces us to ask a bigger question. Can our cells be conscious? Not with human thoughts or emotions, but with their own. Not with human thoughts or emotions, but with their own awareness. So these xenobots blur lines between what we consider alive and dead. Introducing the xenobot, which is a biological machine made out of frog cells using artificial intelligence. Sounds like something out of a mad scientist's laboratory? Let me explain. According to conventional science, something that is considered alive must grow, metabolize, and reproduce. But these xenobots break all these rules. To show this, Dr. Levin took these frog cells and instead of editing its DNA, they simply rearranged the cells like Legos. And remember, these are like stranded cells with no thinking, no plan, no genetic programming. And what happened next was fascinating. These xenobots showed remarkable intelligence where they learned how to move, heal, and that's a great question. And I would like to first test the big picture for everyone. We're prana, chi, energy, science calls it. And they're very synonymous with each other. And then they all point to the same thing, which is basically this. Imagine one day living your life, and then boom, the universe opens you up. You see all. What if I told you that acupuncture, this 3,000-year-old system of ancient healing using these strange needles, can be actually connected to something as modern as quantum physics? So here's the research connecting ancient wisdom with modern science. The main idea behind acupuncture is that the body has these invisible energy pathways called acupuncture. Basically, if someone comes in with a physical
ACD, ACD, ACD set an alarm of 9 o'clock. ACD set an alarm of 9:30. ACD set an alarm of 9:45. ACD set an alarm of 9:50.
Mental health. So what if there was a therapy that can improve your physical, mental, and social health all at once? There's no pills needed, and it involves guiding this flow of invisible energy to the. So what if your thoughts and your consciousness wasn't really yours? And what if the thing that we call our mind only shows up after the universe makes a coin flip? So here's a famous scientist's theory that argues against the idea that your consciousness creates reality. Nobel Prize winning physicist Sir Roger Penrose says,
Particles in quantum physics do not live in one state. They live in many possibilities all at once. It's kind of like a coin flip that's spinning in the air, both heads and tails at once. And in the state of all possibilities is called a wave function. And until someone checks if it's heads or tails, this is what's called a wave function collapse, where only one outcome becomes real. Against popular belief that consciousness is the factor that decides if it's heads or tails. Penrose argues against that, saying that it's actually something that happens in your brain. He says that tiny structures called microtubules in your brain cells is what causes this. And these structures hold quantum possibilities, just like the coin flip analogy. And so until it lands heads or tails, that's when the wave function collapses, and that's when you become conscious. So he's saying that your thoughts in your mind is not what causes reality. It's what shows up after the collapse of these structures in your brain. So are you not the cause of the collapse? And rather, your consciousness is just an effect of a universal coin flip. So what if your thoughts and your consciousness wasn't really yours? And what if the thing that we call our... So chances are you've probably heard of the term third eye chakra before, which is this energy center located between the eyebrows, connected with intuition and higher cognitive abilities. Now, before dismissing this as some woo-woo spiritual metaphor, what if I told you that there was actually science behind it? Dr. Joe Dispenza, a leading expert in the frontier of healing, says that the third eye chakra is connected to the pineal gland. He says that the pineal gland becomes activated through breath, attention, and energy, and it begins to vibrate, releasing thousands of neurochemicals, opening us to non-local states of consciousness, which is quite a jump from what conventional science says, producing just melatonin and regulating your sleep. So here's the research.
More. Alright. More. Shit.
Best time, like maybe ever, honestly, but at least a very long time, to be starting out your career. Because you will get to surf the greatest emotional wave, maybe ever. And what that means is you can change course many times because you will have this unbelievable tailwind. So I wouldn't feel any particular setback or failure, or even just changing your mind, even just deciding there's something more exciting somewhere else to go after. I think this is going to be an unusual time of how much it rewards adaptability and decisive movement. And I would trust that and not get hung up on the fact that you decided that maybe something didn't work because you're just going to be like flooded with opportunities for the next 2 years. It's still hard. It still always feels like a setback. Take the time you need, like go on vacation, go for a hike, and just stew over it for a little while. But when you get that apple, like get that apple clear. So first of all, I think this is probably the best time, like maybe ever, honestly, but at least in a very long time, to be starting out your career. Because you will get to surf the greatest emotional wave, maybe ever. And what that means is you can change course many times because you will have this unbelievable tailwind. So I wouldn't feel any particular setback or failure. If I look at coding programming, which is one area where AI is making the most progress, what we're finding is we are not far from the world. I think we'll be there in 3 to 6 months where AI is writing 90% of the code. And then in 12 months, we may be in a world where AI is writing essentially all of the code. I think human productivity will actually be enhanced. But on the other hand, I think that eventually all those little islands will get picked off by AI systems. And then we will eventually reach a point where the AIs can do everything that humans can. And I think that will happen in every industry. I think it's actually better that it happens to all of us than it happens, that it kind of picks people randomly. I actually think the most societally divisive outcome is if randomly 50% of jobs are suddenly done by AI. Because what that means, societal message is we're picking half, we're randomly picking half of people and saying, you are useless, you are devalued, you are unnecessary. We can have to look at what is technologically possible and say, we need to think about usefulness and uselessness in a different way than we have before, right? Our current way of thinking has not been working. I don't know what the solution is, but it's got to be different than we're all useless, right? We're all useless is a nihilistic answer. We're not going to get anywhere with that answer. We're going to have to come up with something else. If I look at coding programming, which is one area where AI is making the most progress, what we are finding is we are not far from the world. I think we'll be there in 3 to 6 months where AI is writing 90% of the code. And then in 12 months, we may be in a world where AI is writing essentially all of the code. I think human productivity will actually be enhanced. But on the other hand, I I think that eventually all those little islands will get picked off by AI systems, and then we will eventually reach the point where the AIs can do everything that humans can. And I think that will happen in every industry. I think it's actually better that it happens to all of us than that it happens, that it kind of hits people randomly. I actually think the most societally divisive outcome is if randomly 50% of jobs are suddenly done by AI, because what that means, societal message is we're randomly picking half of people and saying, you are useless, you are devalued, you are unnecessary. We're going to have to look at what is technologically possible and say, we need to think about usefulness and uselessness in a different way than we have before, right? Our current way of thinking has not been. I don't know what the solution is, but it's got to be different than we're all useless, right? We're all useless is the nihilistic answer. We're not going with that answer. We're going to use coding programming, which is one area where AI is making the most progress. What we're finding is we're in a virtual world. I think we'll be there in 3 to 6 months. AI is writing 90% of the code. And then in 12 months, we may be in a world where AI is writing essentially all of the code. I think productivity will actually be enhanced. But on the other hand, I think that eventually all those little islands will get picked off by AI systems. And then we will eventually reach the point where the AIs can do everything that humans can. I think it's actually better that it happens to all of us than this person. What is this? It's only the ugliest fucking nucleic acid I've ever seen. Whoever's genes and DNA this is look, that is the worst double-stranded helix formation I have ever seen. Polynucleopeptides are fucked. Oh my god! How do you think the CRISPR gene can fix this? What do you mean? No idea. We're looking at DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. You don't see a double-stranded helix? Oh, it evolved. What is this? It's only the ugliest fucking deoxyribonucleic acid I've ever seen. Whoever's genes and DNA this is look, that is the worst double-stranded helix formation I have ever seen. Polynucleopeptides are fucked. Oh my god! How do you think the CRISPR gene can fix this? What do you mean? No idea. We're looking at DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. You don't see the double-stranded helix? Oh, it evolved. What is this? It's only the ugliest fucking deoxyribonucleic acid I've ever seen. Whoever's genes and DNA this is look, that is the worst double-stranded helix formation I have ever seen. Polynucleopeptides are fucked. Oh my god! How do you think the CRISPR gene can fix this? What do you mean? No idea. We're looking at DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. You don't see the double-stranded helix? Oh, it evolved. What is this? It's only the ugliest fucking deoxyribonucleic acid I've ever seen. Whoever's genes and DNA this is look, that is the worst double-stranded helix formation I have ever seen. Polynucleopeptides are fucked. Oh my god! How do you think the CRISPR gene can fix this? We're looking at DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. You don't see a double-stranded helix?
changes in their lifestyles built by you. Like, that stage, bro. Sometimes it's bound to be something really real. Some developing socioeconomic status within your community. Like, oh my god, it's like I can't stress this enough. Why would you fucking do that? Why would you raise like that? Why would you form that pattern? Bro, that is literally the most basic pattern. Oh, we're all supposed to be unique. We're supposed to be unique. We're so place and we're all unique. Bro, I've seen that pattern a fucking thousand times. Literally 1,000 times. You're not special. If I saw that flame fall from the sky, I'd grab it and put it in my mouth and eat it and I shit it out and laugh. You're a liberal snowflake. Why would you fucking do that? Why would you raise like that? Why would you form that pattern? Bro, that is literally the most basic pattern. Oh, we're all supposed to be unique. We're supposed to be unique. We're so place and we're all unique. Bro, I've seen that pattern a fucking thousand times. Literally 1,000 times. You're not special. If I saw that flame fall from the sky, I'd grab it and put it in my mouth and eat it and I shit it out and laugh. You're a liberal snowflake. Why would you fucking do that? Why would you raise like that? Why would you form that pattern? Bro, that is literally the most basic pattern. Oh, we're all supposed to be unique. We're supposed to be unique. We're so place and we're all unique. Bro, I've seen that pattern a fucking thousand times. Literally 1,000 times. You're not special. If I saw that flame fall from the sky, I'd grab it and put it in my mouth and eat it and I shit it out and laugh. You're a liberal snowflake. Why would you fucking do that? Why would you raise like that? Why would you form that pattern? Bro, that is literally the most basic pattern. Oh, we're all supposed to be unique. We're all supposed to be unique. We're so place and we're all unique. Bro, I've seen that pattern a fucking thousand times. Literally 1,000 times. You're not special. If I saw that flame fall from the sky, I'd grab it and put it in my mouth and eat it and I shit it out and laugh. You're a liberal snowflake. Why would you fucking do that? Why would you raise like that? Why would you form that pattern? Bro, that is literally the most basic pattern. Oh, we're all supposed to be unique. We're supposed to be unique. We're so place and we're all unique. Bro, I've seen that pattern a fucking thousand times. Literally 1,000 times. You're not special. If I saw that flame fall from the sky, I'd grab it and put it in my mouth and eat it and I shit it out and laugh. You're a liberal snowflake. Why would you fucking do that? Why would you freeze like that? Why would you form that pattern? Bro, that is literally the most basic pattern. Oh, we're all supposed to be unique. We're supposed to be unique. We're so place and we're all unique. Bro, I've seen that pattern a fucking thousand times. Literally 1,000 times. You're not special. If I saw that flame fall from the sky, I'd grab it and put it in my mouth and eat it and I shit it out and laugh. You're a liberal snowflake. Why would you fucking do that? Why would you freeze like that? Why would you form that pattern? Bro, that is literally the most basic pattern. Oh, we're all supposed to be unique. We're supposed to be unique. We're so place and we're all unique. Bro, I've seen that pattern a fucking thousand times. Literally 1,000 times. You're not special. If I saw that flame fall from the sky, I'd grab it and put it in my mouth and eat it and I shit it out and laugh. You're a liberal snowflake. Why would you fucking do that? Why would you freeze like that? Why would you form that pattern? Bro, that is literally the most basic pattern. Oh, we're all supposed to be unique. We're supposed to be unique. We're so place and we're all unique. Bro, I've seen that pattern a fucking thousand times. Literally 1,000 times. You're not special. If I saw that flame fall from the sky, I'd grab it and put it in my mouth and eat it and I shit it out and laugh. You're a liberal snowflake.
Day 2 of our survive.
Why would you freeze like that? Why
Thank
would you
you.
form that